During my time in the armed forces and my recent involvement in some of England Rugby's grassroots programmes, I've seen that the values shared between rugby players and the military are as strong now as they ever have been. As we commemorate the centenary of the First World War and the impact it had on all our communities, it's worth us remembering the rugby community of 1914 who paid such a heavy price.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this unveiling of the Lest We Forget gates. Today, as we remember specifically the England players, we also give thanks to all those who made that commitment and that dedication so that we may have the freedoms that we have today, and for those who have fought in conflict since.
And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountain green, and was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant land.
I ask you to stand with me for both the injured and the lost. I ask you to keep count with me of all the wars and what they cost. I ask you to be silent with me, quietly grateful for our lot, as I expect you're as thankful as me for the health and life we've got.
The day before the 2016 Army-Navy match at Twickenham, the Rose and Poppy gates were unveiled. Officially started after the First World War ended, it is now played every year at Twickenham to a full house. The same spirit that inspired rugby players to join the armed forces 100 years ago still prevails to this day.
Dixon gets the call from Rockadunguni, steps inside one, steps inside another, and yet again, Samisa Rockadunguni scores for the Army against the Navy. That was just a little bit too simple.
Rocco, hard game today. But for you personally, 2 tries and in front of a very proud father, I imagine.
To me personally, playing in front of this crowd and in front of my dad too as well, it's an awesome feeling, to be honest.
Quick presentation again, Rockadunguni offers, again he slides through with way too much ease, and again Rockadunguni is on the score sheet in the Army-Navy game.
I mean, this is where everything started for me. 3-5 years ago, this is where I started playing rugby, so this is where I get recognized. So coming back in, it's saying thank you to the Army for the wonderful opportunity that leaders have done to Bath, and thank you for all the service personnel out there in Afghanistan serving. So yeah, this is me representing the Army as a whole. So yeah.
And from the present day, going back to the past, the family of Jack King's comrade in arms, Lancelot Slowcock, still hold his story close to their hearts.
My grandfather played for 2 years and had the great honour to captain the match against Scotland in 1908. That was the one occasion he was captain. And then he injured his knee very badly, and that was that. They went down. It was quite a close game, but the stories say that the fire went out of the forwards when Slowcock collapsed. And then after that, the next day, there was a fire in the hotel where my poor grandfather was trying to recover with terrible water on his knee. And he was known to say that the Scottish tried to get rid of him twice on the plane and in the hotel. My grandfather's great-grandson and great-great-grandson are here with us. There they are, Mark and Max.
So when was he capped? 1906. 1907. So this wall is a list of all internationals. So 1907.
All the way back to 1871.
Let's look up. There you go.
Yeah. The tragedy is that my father, he was only 2 when he was killed.
Really? So
he didn't know him. He would have loved to live.
yeah.
Just loved him.
Did he talk to you about him?
Yeah, oh yes. He was
Really?
so proud of him. Because he was more than a great athlete.
Yeah.
He was clearly a very fine chap.
Someone who wanted to know.
He, that one of the letters of condolence to my grandmother was all about bullying at Marlborough. And apparently he just stopped it single-handed.
Really?
Yeah. Which is quite, I mean, you can imagine a public school in those days. Pretty tough.
Yeah.
But he was tougher.
Yeah. They
Tougher
bred
than
him tough.
toughest.
They bred him tough, haven't they? And do you know anything about Jack King? Do you know if they were friends? Do you know, they
they
were.
Oh yeah, they were, definitely.
You know, this probably isn't the truth, but they were shoulder to shoulder going over, and
Well,
yeah.
So one of the
Might
letters,
have been.
one of the last letters does say, doesn't it?
It does actually say that he was shot. Your grandfather was shot going over, and one of his officers with him said, "Is there anything I can do?" And he said, "No, carry on," and that was the last sentence.
Oh, really? Bizarre to think of all the connections that
Yeah.
you had to, but yeah.
Oh,
But it's
it
been,
makes you sad, really, doesn't it?
yeah. It was a waste.
of good men.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
But without them, you know, we'd be in a very different situation now. So you're a wonderful link, Harry, between the First World War and international rugby, and your father was involved in the First World War. Do you remember anything about your father, or?
My mother tells me he saw me once. After I was born, she said he came home and then went back again.
So he came back, so he saw you once before he went off to the war.
Yeah.
The war.
That's what I was told, but that's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Do you know what regiment he was in, or?
Second Worcesters, he was corporal.
And do you know where he served, where he was at the time?
Well, he got killed on the Somme, that's all I know. I don't know the particular place. So the only thing I told you was this Birmingham paper I had for years, and it said that Corporal Walker was killed, and then it said he gave the weight, what weight he was, and I can't remember. Boxing champion of the army, and also performed before the King and Queen at gymnast, so he must have been a good gymnast. He never said a word about anything else.
Ah, really? So he's a boxer as well, then?
Well, that's what it said. Yeah. In my grandmother's front row, there's a big picture, you know, of him in boxing kit, and that's all I know. My mother, she was a weaver. She had to go out to work. My grandmother brought me up. If I fell over and hurt myself, win them and wear them. If I had the kind at school, you must have deserved it. No sympathy. Mother married again, which was a bloody good thing for her, but my stepfather had his own life and his own children, and he wasn't interested. So, what decisions I'd got to make, I'd got nobody to ask for, I had to make them myself. Having never known him, it's funny feeling, you know. Must have been thousands like me.
Harry served in the army himself in the Second World War and played for the army rugby team.
That was fiasco.
Was it?
I played for the army in London, and then going back to base, I was only the other rank in. I tackled one of the opposition and messed him up a bit, and he turned around to me and said, "You can't do that, I'm an officer on the park."
Brilliant. Do you think there's anything in particular about rugby, having played it at the highest level like you did, that would go to making good soldiers as well?
Oh, definitely. Playing to the referee in other games, the player objects and talks to the referee's decisions, but it's rugby football, you just obeyed and get on with it. The referee blows your whistle and that's it. And I think that part of it makes you good soldiers.
Harry, thank you very much indeed. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I did tackle Obelinski once.
Obelinski, did you? Was he upset about that?
How I got to him, I'm bugging up and over, I did. And after I was bloody proud of that.
Jack, you recently found out that your great-great-uncle Frank, I believe, was involved in the First World War. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I found out from my dad that came up. We had a meal here at the club that Tony Rose was very involved in. It was obviously the guys that died on the first day of the Battle of the Somme. Because I've always had one of our ancestors' name on the monument down where I live in Newlyn. I never knew too much about it, but yeah, my dad came up and said, "Oh yeah, that was your great-great-uncle, and that's what the monument's there. It's for the guys that died." There's been times where I've been walking past my mates and when I was younger, and just pointing it out. The fact that it's got the same name and my name's on there. So yeah, it was quite of a mixed emotions, quite of a special feeling. Obviously being a bit proud, and obviously yeah, his name's been passed down from generation to generation, and my little brother's called Frank now.
Ah, amazing. And did you say your dad was Frank as well?
My granddad was Frank.
Your granddad was Frank, so yeah. family
My
tradition.
granddad was Frank, his dad was Frank, and obviously passed up from there.
Actually, I was named after my great-grandfather, exactly, so Lewis Walton Moody, and he was a part of the first BEF that went over there. So it's funny how those names
get passed down.
Yeah.
It's good. I think it's special, I think. It's good. Yeah, with my great-great-uncle, he might have played rugby, he might not have, but it's more the fact of what he did and what he stood for. Yeah, it's definitely given me the chance and, me the reason why I'm still playing now.
And for me, like all of them, my journey of discovery started with my own family. My great-uncles, Sidney and Ernest, who has no known grave and is commemorated at Tyne-Cot Cemetery. And my namesake, Lewis Walton Moody. So just placed a poppy on the grave of George Arthur White, who is the 2nd Battalion, Royal Sussex Regiment, aged 23, died 6th November 1914, which was 4 months after my namesake, Lewis Walton Moody, my great-grandfather, was invalided out of the very same battalion, the very same regiment. He was a year older at 24. So I felt the significance of coming here and paying my respects to possibly someone that my great-grandfather knew and died only 4 months after he left the regiment. 2 years ago, I visited the site of the Munster Fusiliers because on one day during that retreat, the Royal Sussex were changed with the Munster Fusiliers, and the very next day they encountered the Germans, and I think it's 700 of the Munster Fusiliers died. If that hadn't happened, I quite possibly wouldn't be here today. The last story of the First World War I wanted to explore is that of John Raphael, because in many ways he ties everything together. He arrived on the front in the heat of battle as an England rugby player with 9 caps. And while there, in what spare time he had, he wrote a book.
This was published by Harriet Raphael in 1918, and this is the foreword that she wrote. No man was ever a more chivalrous and devoted son or loyal friend. An only child, he was born at Brussels on the 30th of April 1882, died from wounds on the 11th June 1917, and was buried on Belgian soil.
For me as a rugby player, to realise how important it was for John Raphael to get down his thoughts about the game that he loved in one of the most inhospitable, most hideous environments you can ever imagine, just makes you realise how important rugby was to these guys, how important it was that above all other things he decided to write about rugby in what was his last days. Having made this film, I have been struck by the way the values that bound us within the rugby community all those years ago remain to this day. Through the individuals we've focused on, amongst millions more, I've learned they can never be confined to history because they are the story of who we are now and who we will be in the future, through our families, friends and communities. For this, we can take great heart.
I found out that a family member of mine had died in the First World War, so I'd certainly encourage others to go out there and find out a bit more about them.
Although the landscape's changed and the trees have grown back, still sort of echoes, you know, it's not that long ago.
The values shared between rugby players and the military are as strong now as they ever have been.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.